Just something simple to start off before we get into the really crazy stuff. During PvP, because we're dumb, I slash out the sorcerer's eyes. Okay, roll an attack roll at disadvantage. I rolled a 13. Does that hit you, sorcerer? Yes? Sorcerer, both of your eyes have been slashed out, and you are now permanently blind. I mean, if that's the type of game you want to run, that's the type of game you want to run, but damn. Attack roll of 13 completely blinding your character forever. I mean, healing potions might fix it. For convenience, I will be using people's characters' names in this post. The group is as follows: myself as the DM, Arya as the warlock, Duke as the fighter, Gix as the mystic, Oak as the rogue, Tarvin as the bard, and finally the problem player, Ordeg, the barbarian/druid. This adventure started in Pathfinder with the Dragon's Demand module, then became a homebrew 5th edition continuation of said adventure. Oak and Tarvin did not join until we moved into 5th edition, but even with the small group, the adventure was tons of fun. Lots of memorable moments and reoccurring story arcs and twists. The group was also fantastic. Even Ordeg, our problem player at this time, was very excited and a great addition to the group. But let's focus on when the problems began to show. Ordeg in real life. I first want to touch on Ordeg's personality outside of the game. As I said, the first year we spent together was fine, but warning signs began to show over time. To be honest, I was pretty oblivious to these until they were brought to my attention. Some of these include mooching off of other people's alcohol without their permission, refusing to pay for pizza because he's quote-unquote not hungry, but then eating a fourth of the pizza anyway, and his refusal to come to us for games. For example, our college had multiple dorm buildings, and everyone, except for Ordeg, lived in the same dorm. Yet, he made us all go to his dorm, presumably because he didn't want to walk. There were other things, like some minor incelish behavior and not paying people back, eating food obnoxiously, etc., but this was over the course of 2 years. I will touch more on Ordeg IRL in a bit. Now, Ordeg's character in D&D. As the adventure transitioned into 5th edition, many changes had to be made. With everyone now having an apartment, we went from the basement of Ordeg's dorm building to Duke, Oak, and Ordeg's apartment for games instead. Arya went from Arcanist to Warlock, Gix's previous character became an NPC, and Ordeg went from Blood Rager to Barbarian. Ordeg really enjoyed the martial magic fusion of Blood Rager, as it gave him the ability to cast spells and fly while raging, especially flying. He really liked flying. He instead became a totem warrior, focusing on eagle abilities, presumably to get the 14th level ability that lets you fly for a short period of time. Over time, he became quite sour with his character, feeling the other party members outshined him, but rather than come to me to discuss a potential character change, he just let it be and began to sulk at the table, especially during combat. First big warning sign. One of the first big fights nearly led to a TPK, with both Gix's first character and Oak, our rogue, dying. This was due to Ordeg pulling 2 combat encounters into 1 combat encounter. As the first fight was happening, Ordeg ignored the fight entirely and wanted to continue exploring the dungeon. This led to opening a door with the dungeon's boss inside of it, and of course, he began to attack as well. All the while, Ordeg, the group's tank, wild-shaped into a small spider and simply observed as the party was dying around him, forcing them to fight the deadly encounter alone. These spider transformations were constant and quickly became a meme in our group, as he would sit on people's shoulders and do nothing. Oak was a new player too at this point, so it was not a great start to his introduction into D&D, but it eventually worked itself out as the bodies were recovered and revived. Ordeg's continual behavior. Ordeg had a constant tendency to avoid fights like the plague, refusing to rush the front lines because he didn't want to die, despite the barbarian's role being the frontliner. This led to Gix coming along to serve as a side tank, and even Oak, the rogue, had to switch to a more tank melee-focused build. As time went on, the adventure improved, but Ordeg did not. He never paid attention to the story, constantly asking what the party was doing. He showed a general disinterest in the story I had made, and his actual personality began to leak into Ordeg's personality. Tarvin the Bard joined the group, and unfortunately never had a chance to experience Ordeg when he was a tolerable character. Over the course of this adventure, we had multiple sit-downs and discussions about Ordeg's behavior, but they were constantly met with, I don't care, type of responses. I did everything in my power to involve Ordeg, but they were all fruitless. It only got worse from here. It got to the point where Ordeg was now wearing headphones during games and listening to music, air drumming to himself while other players were trying to roleplay and sitting on his phone watching quote-unquote funny videos. I called him out on his behavior, but like everything else, it did not stop him. Oh, Ordeg's hypocrisy. Back to in real life for a moment. As I mentioned, Ordeg lived with Duke and Oak, other players, and they had their issues with each other. Each of them set responsibilities to do around the apartment. One person would handle dishes, one would handle cleaning the bathroom, etc. Ordeg constantly complained about their apartment being dirty, all the while ignoring his responsibilities around the apartment. This led to a big conversation between the three that only worsened Ordeg's mood at the table. He was now completely silent during some sessions. Even trying to get him to speak would just lead to him staring at you and shrugging like a child. Ordeg continued to show interest in D&D, unless it was in my adventure specifically, despite everyone else having a great time. He began to step away from sessions early because he was tired, only to go up to his room and play video games all night with other people, leaving to go hang out with other people, or making fake excuses just to get out of D&D. I don't understand why he didn't just come to me to talk about his issues with my game. I even tried to ask him, but still, nothing. As the adventure was about to reach its end, one of the things I did in my adventure was include powerful artifact scavenger hunts, with each artifact being tied to a certain player character. These items included a powerful crossbow for Duke, a legendary lyre for our bard Tarvin, etc. These artifacts were all tied to the player characters' backstories, with many of them having to confront their past in order to obtain these items. With each artifact that was recovered, Ordeg continued to get more and more jealous over the other players, despite me designing one for him as well. Everyone else had an artifact at this point, and this was because Ordeg had never bothered to attend these sessions, so the party felt like, why should we go after this artifact for Ordeg when he isn't even interested in helping us get ours? Ordeg never got his artifact, by the way. By the time everyone had theirs, Ordeg had completely given up on the adventure and stopped attending sessions. He was never at the apartment when we played, he ignored messages of us trying to reach out to him, and he found a new game at our club. Some of these new friends of his were really cool, nice people, so it sucked to see someone as toxic as Ordeg attach himself to their group. Conclusion. And so ends the legend of Ordeg. The adventure I had written ended with an amazing final battle. My group and I continued to play D&D and other board games together while Ordeg moved out of the apartment without a word and ghosted us. We even had a super high-powered one-shot with everyone's characters for one final close on the adventure. To this day, I don't really understand why he refused to speak to me or anyone else about his problems. He may have been a selfish asshole, but when he was in a good mood, he was fun to be around. In fact, Ordeg was the one who kind of brought us together as a group in the first place. I implore anyone who is in a D&D group with a player like this to not remain silent and speak up if you notice any problems. It's infinitely better to make changes to an adventure to better suit your group than to not do anything at all and continue to let the player's mood sour. I tried and failed because Ordeg refused to communicate. Nowadays, our group plays online due to us being all over the state, but we continue to make great memories together through Dungeons and Dragons. TLDR, a player who started out great slowly devolved into no longer speaking with us, refusing any suggestions I, the DM, made to make his experience better, and he eventually leaves us without saying a word. OP was spot on in that conclusion. Players cannot expect their DM to read their mind if a player is unhappy with the game. There's nothing wrong with approaching a DM and trying to have an open discussion about how the DM can improve the experience for you, the player. Communication is so important because if you as the player are not having fun, it is going to bleed into the table. It is inevitable. And that kind of thing, especially stuff like listening to music and air drumming while people are trying to play, can really sour the mood of a D&D game. So, if you're not having a good time, talk to your DM, and if you just don't want to play D&D, don't play D&D. Nothing wrong with walking away from a game that you're not having fun in, or that you just don't want to play. Nothing wrong with that at all. But Ordeg did not do that, and therefore kind of ruined the experience of his fellow players for what essentially amounted to nothing. A couple years back, at the height of COVID shutdown, I joined Roll20 in Discord to start getting back into Dungeons & Dragons. I managed to get myself into a game and was hyped. I created a half-elf male bard. The other party members were a male half-orc monk, female Eladrin Elf Rogue, male Human Fighter, and female Furbolg Barbarian. The party got along well, and we introduced our characters to one another in a Session 0 at level 1 with mini-quests DM put together to see how we would interact and how well we would roleplay together. I introduce my bard as being a musician who wants to improve his musical talents. His main focus would be adventuring with other would-be heroes in hopes of putting together an epic ballad that would last the ages. He was not against any fornication and would gladly accept the offer from a beautiful woman, but he would not take part in simping for hopes of sexual favors. I played him off as proper gentleman, chivalry and humility. Everyone liked the concept. The Session 0 mini-quest was a rather long side mission that was almost completely deadly, as we were sent to clear out a goblin den. We failed stealth checks, and my bard was somehow thrust into a 1v1 situation with a goblin boss. Reminder that we are level 1 at this time. Well, he stuck to my character like glue. With sheer luck and use of dodge actions to keep the goblin boss occupied, we managed to separate the other goblins into different mobs and cut them down. The barbarian tanked most of the mob attacks, and the rogue was critically hit, going down instantly. My bard managed to use 2 of his spell slots to cast Healing Word at the right times to save the barbarian and rogue from outright dying, all the while dodging and keeping the goblin boss busy. We win the Battle of Attrition and level up. After the fight, DM takes note of my spell uses and immediately comments that for a bard, not simping, he's only helping the female PCs with his heals. I state that they are the only characters he could see with the dynamic light setting and cramped tunnel systems in that current situation. Besides, it was the party who told me to specifically heal those characters, so how is he simping? DM says, "Okay, whatever," and laughs it off. Several sessions in, the party was having a good time with shenanigans despite the serious nature of the module. Through roleplay, my bard had a couple of nights of romance with the rogue. She did state that she saw this as a temporary ship and that there was no romantic feelings involved. I said I didn't mind, since romance was not in his purview at the moment, and my bard would not treat her poorly nor look at her differently just because she was very open. He was a gentleman after all. DM seemed annoyed my bard didn't try to force the development of romance, nor chase the other female PC to conquer? He even tried throwing sexy NPCs at my bard's feet. In character, I accepted their words and praise, but didn't go out of my way to recite love poems nor flirt aggressively. My character was a humble, courteous person and acted like a gentleman, not a horn dog. DM went into an angry rant after another session telling me I was playing the bard wrong. His idea of bards were that they were horny men and women who just want to go around sleeping with everyone that walked on 2 legs. He even told me I should be playing bards like Critical Role Scanlan. Don't get me wrong, I love Scanlan. I consider this character the best one in Season 1 Critical Role, but I tell him just because Scanlan and other streamers played a bard this way doesn't mean I need to follow suit. I let him finish and follow up with a bunch of questions. Why can't a bard be just a normal person? Do male bards always need to think with their dick? Why is it that bards must be seen as tramps? Can a bard not be a gentleman or gentlewoman? Did you make my bard for me? Does it hurt your feelings when I play a bard this way? If so, why does it hurt you? Are you my bard character in real life or something? The following week, he tells us the game is over, as he is now mentally stressed out and would no longer DM for us. So, TLDR? My bard is not a horny bard, so he's not a real bard. DM rants and quits DMing after his idea of a bard is questioned. DM completely misses the fact that Scanlan isn't even a just horny bard. He actually breaks that stereotype, and those character moments are what makes him a great character. That's why people remember him so fondly. It's not just because of the horny jokes and the horny songs. So why he used that example, I have no idea. Well, he tried anyway. Don't tell people to play horny characters if they don't want to. Don't tell people to play characters that they don't want to in general. It's a great way to ruin the fun of Dungeons and Dragons. However, I think most of you understand that. Next story. I have been playing with a group of people for almost 4 years now, and it's been really chill and fun. This group consists of myself, my husband, Urayu, my friend, Maijin, the DM, Asuma, DM's best friend, and Tucker, the Creeper, at the time. Tucker the Creeper was actually an old friend of everyone else besides myself and my friend Urayu. He had just moved back into town after being gone for a few years, and this was my first time ever meeting him. The DM and their friend seemed a bit weary when he joined, but I didn't understand why until after the events. The first session with Creeper Tucker got off to a rough start because he wanted to change his character completely, much to our annoyance. DM Myjin helped to create a new character while the rest of us did our own thing and waited, but only got an hour of playing in. We were in a shop. We always went out to eat after, so we hit our usual spot and talked about whatever. But Tucker the Creeper didn't say a word to me. I caught him kinda staring at me, but I didn't think much of it. Things went a little bit more smoothly on the next session though. We were splitting up in character and my character was going to go alone, but Creeper Tucker randomly wanted to go with my character. I played my character as antisocial and a loner who didn't communicate well with new people, and I told him this, but he stuck with my character anyway. I love to draw and was drawing my character while the story was focused on the others, and he asked for a commission of Ichigo from Bleach, which I never got to do, by the way. I did agree to the commission though. We went out to eat afterwards like normal and we were all talking about anime. I said something about Dragon Ball Z and Tucker jumped in and agreed with me, and that was it. Session 3 wasn't really a session because DM's friend Asuma was sick and my friend Ryu stayed home since he lived far out. Creeper Tucker also didn't show, so we just hung out and went out to eat. So I talked to this person at least a total of 3-ish times casually in person, and one time through a comment section of a post he made about being depressed one night. He then found the random courage to hit me with this. Hey, I just want to say you're so beautiful, and if you weren't dating your husband, I would treat you so much better than he does. I would spoil you rotten and treat you like the queen you deserve to be treated like. If you left your husband to be with me, you wouldn't regret it. You shouldn't tell him about this though, and keep it between us. After reading that, I kinda just froze, but once I could speak, I immediately told my husband. Like I said earlier, Creeper Tucker knew all the members of the group and my husband long before I came into the picture, so my husband was rightfully pissed off, and so was everyone else. I was very uncomfortable and thought about leaving the campaign, but the DM and their friend had my back. They made it clear that they would be talking to Tucker at the next session, and oh boy they did. DM Myjin kicked Tucker from the campaign by the end. Tucker said he thought he loved me and that I was nice and so beautiful that he couldn't help it and felt like I led him on because a casual conversation about anime is my nerdy mating call, apparently. I felt bad at first, but I was told about something like this happening before, and it ended with Tucker getting temporarily banned by the shop owner because he just didn't stop. After he was kicked, he posted all on his social media about how depressed he was, which made me feel bad, so I attempted to reconcile, but it didn't go well. His whole attitude towards me 180'd, and he snapped at me saying, "Whatever, you don't know how depression feels, or how bad game over thoughts are." So I left him with this. Actually, I know about it as well as the next person, how it feels, as I struggled with both since the age of 13. You'd know that if you actually gotten to know me instead of trying to play Mr. Steal Your Girl and get in my pants. So, yeah, that happened. Wasn't that crazy of a story, but it still makes me cringe to this day. What do you mean? That is a crazy story, absolutely. Probably one of the worst we've read on the channel. It is comparable to something we've read before, and I'll just parrot what I said previously. Manipulation like this is bad, absolutely unforgivable. Not only does it ruin the game, but it also can just ruin lives. If Tucker did this before, then the group absolutely should have been more cautious. Obviously, this isn't the group's fault. This is 100% Tucker's fault. He's the problem here. But if you see somebody doing this kind of manipulation, harassing people in this manner, then it can't be allowed to just slide. This happened back when Curse of Strahd first dropped, spoilers ahead. I was one of the forever GMs at my local game store because 4 groups wanted me to run for them, and I wanted to play instead of run for a change. Another forever GM also wanted that, so we asked around about open games, and one of the employees said he was going to run Strahd as soon as the store got the books in. The players are myself, the other forever GM, one of our usual players, and the GM's brother, who is visiting for a couple months out of state. All is going well. The books come in, he gets a good look at them, has us players make characters, he wants us to use the supplemental material that came out to create a horror-themed background. It's all awesome. I created a paladin whose backstory includes being a knight of a realm and being dispatched to clear out a rebel village that was trying to raise up arms against the king. However, upon arriving with a small cavalry unit, it's clear that the village just wanted more resources and support from the crown and stood no chance against actual soldiers. Her men insisted on carrying out the orders, but she refuses. They attack her and she is forced to defend herself and kills her own force, which results in her being branded an outlaw. She ends up taking a paladin oath to protect the weak and innocent against evil. However, she is blinded by her trauma and often takes a brutal route to that goal. Essentially, she started as Dudley Do-Right. She's transitioning into Judge Dredd and will probably keep going until she hits Darth Vader. Perfect, the DM says. We get into Barovia and I start playing my character. We encounter a monstrous creature lurking on the outskirts of town. It bows up to us. My paladin lays it low. Awesome. We find a priest who is acting really shifty, so my paladin leans on him a bit and he gives enough info that we want to search his basement because he is obviously hiding something and we heard growling and yelling from the locked door. My paladin knocks the dude out and takes his keys to start down the stairs. That's not very paladin-like. What do you mean? Paladins are supposed to be good and upstanding. Your background said that's what she was. Paladins can be whatever they want, and yes, she was that. She isn't anymore. She's a gothic horror protagonist now. He's obviously not satisfied by that, but we continue on anyway. The secret in the basement is a priest's son, who is a vampire spawn chained to a wall. My paladin doesn't hesitate and leads the team in removing this evil from the land via staking and decapitation. What the hell? What? Why is your paladin murdering people? She isn't. She's putting down a vampire spawn. He wasn't a full vampire. You didn't even try to figure out if you could cure him. You just staked him. Did you miss the part in her bio that said she often takes the most brutal route? Whatever. Paladins don't act this way. They're all lawful good and religious. Paladins have not been exclusively lawful good since before you and I were born. A Dragon magazine in like 1985 listed paladins of every alignment. Also, the core rulebook for 5th edition as well as all supplements that talk about the issue say that paladins are not just lawful good and do not have to be holy at all. It's the oath that gives them power. He did not take kindly to being told that at all, yet we continued. We now hit another snag, the DM's brother and his rogue. He starts acting against the party, being that guy. He argues with everything, he acts in disruptive ways, he causes problems, but the capper was when we encountered a revenant on the road. My paladin sees this massively disfigured, nearly undead-looking guy and stands her ground. The other characters wait as well, but the GM's brother has his rogue hide, so if things turn into a fight, he can get a sneak attack in. Sounds good to us. The revenant approaches, but doesn't act aggressively. His face was too messed up for him to talk, though. Myself, thinking my GM wants me to solve problems without a sword being drawn, tries to communicate with the revenant and find out what he wants. The GM's brother suddenly sneak attacks the revenant, gets a crit, which the GM roleplays as it's stumbling and falling off the edge of the switchback road they were on. The party looks over the edge and the revenant is wily coyoted on the roadway below, but is getting back up and starts to climb back towards the party. Why did you sneak attack that dude? He's a monster. I was trying to talk to it and it wasn't attacking. Why do you care? You don't talk to monsters. You always just slaughter them. The revenant gets back up on the roadway and my paladin stands off to the side and motions to the revenant, then to the rogue, and the rest of the party does the same. The GM responds to this by saying, "You're just going to let him fight one-on-one? Abandon your teammate?" His character's been a jackass for days in-game. He's caused us crap loads of trouble and been told to knock it off. He started this fight. He can finish it, can he? The GM and his brother are now 1v1ing and are not happy. The rogue loses, by the way, badly, but the revenant doesn't kill him, just knocks him into death saves and leaves. My paladin heals the rogue to 1 hit point and only 1 hit point and tells him that this was a life lesson. Why is your paladin so mean? They're supposed to be the good guys. Seriously, why is this so hard? She's following all the rules of a paladin. They aren't all shiny glowing knights with halos. This one is mean and cold and brutal and is allowed by the player handbook and every other supplement. And your brother specifically asked for dark, edgy characters. The next session we come across the witches in the windmill. We figure it out real quick and my paladin torches the place with the witches inside.
What if there were prisoners in there?
Risk of the witches escaping and killing us was too high. Not a fun choice, but a practical one.
Do you even know what a paladin is?
That's it. I'm done. I'm tired of you fighting me on this. The thing you asked me to do, make a dark and edgy character. I did that. I made a dark paladin, which is 100% in line with rules as written and rules as intended. Stop telling me I'm playing my character wrong because I am getting really tired of hearing it, and I'm already not having a lot of fun as is. The DM latches onto that last bit only.
Wait, why aren't you having fun?
Besides you telling me my paladin isn't acting like a paladin because she isn't lawful good, oh, that's easy. The rogue, your brother, he's an ass. He starts fights just to cause chaos. He's constantly arguing with everything. He has to try to steal from the other party members more than once. He's infuriating to deal with. Everyone else, besides the GM's brother, agree and all voice that the GM's brother is making them not want to play because he is being an asshole. Constantly. The GM realizes that the group is very much not on the same page as he was and tries to explain.
Well, he knows what he's supposed to do.
What does that even mean?
I told him to act that way. He's actually an agent of Strahd, infiltrating the party to disrupt it.
So you told your brother to play the game like a jackass on purpose just to screw with us? Okay, no, I'm done. And I got up, as did the other forever GM I played with, plus another regular player, leaving the GM and his brother just slack-jawed. Next time I'm in, I find out he blamed the failure of the game entirely on me and was telling people I was a jerk. Tried to convince players in my game to quit and play his game instead as well. I went to the owner of the store over that and threatened to move all 4 of my games to another store. And enough of my regular players were around and said they'd follow me to another store that he saw that it was a big enough issue to tell the failed GM to chill out and just leave me alone. That was the last time I ever played D&D. I have exclusively ran games ever since then. Okay, so the question of the player's behavior is interesting here. I'm gonna be honest. The Paladin is a character I probably would not okay in my own games. I know the party that I run my game for, a character like the Paladin probably would not be compatible with the party that I have and the campaign that I'm running, and I probably wouldn't okay that character. And that is where the key difference lies. The GM wanted this character, and it's a perfectly okay character for Curse of Strahd. The Paladin can be really, really interesting, and the GM said specifically, yes, give me dark, edgy characters. And when the Paladin became a thing, the GM okayed it, and when the game started, the GM hated her. And when the Paladin tried to change her tactic and tried talking with a non-hostile creature, the rogue interrupts anyway. And also the GM using their brother as the evil imposter working for Strahd, that's bad, obviously. Don't do that. It completely ruins the experience. Even if it makes sense in the story, it doesn't matter. The party doesn't have that context. Someone being a dick is someone being a dick. That's all they know. All it does is ruin the fun for everyone. I'm sure the GM and his brother thought they were being real clever, but all they were doing was ruining the experience for the players. And that is really the cardinal sin of DMing. If you guys enjoyed this episode of RPG Horror Stories, you want to let me know, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then please do subscribe to Crispy's Tavern. We also have a series full of D&D advice you might find useful, tabletop tavern tips. Check that out as well. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment Undying Love to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.